Welcome to the Insurance Agents and Brokers Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the audio version of Coverage Corner. Coverage Corner is a monthly column in IA&B's primary agent magazine. The May 2026 column is entitled Drones: Where is the Coverage for Your Commercial Insureds? By Cathy Trischan. Your contractor client uses a camera-equipped drone to inspect the exterior of the upper levels of a high-rise building. How does coverage under your insured's policies apply? Imagine the contractor's commercial general liability, or CGL, policy is the Insurance Services Office, Inc., or ISO, CG 00010413, coverage form. Coverage A provides bodily injury and property damage liability coverage. This coverage, though, has an exclusion for bodily injury or property damage arising out of the ownership, maintenance, use, or entrustment to others of any aircraft, auto, or watercraft owned or operated by, or rented, or loaned to any insured. Does this exclusion apply to drones? Although the CGL policy does not define aircraft, assume yes. The question of whether a drone is an aircraft was addressed by a California court. A photography company used a drone to film a wedding, and the drone seriously injured a guest when it made contact with her eye. The court looked to the dictionary where aircraft was defined as a vehicle, such as an airplane or balloon, for traveling through the air. The court ruled that a drone is an aircraft and the CGL exclusion applies. The aircraft, auto, and watercraft exclusion is not absolute, though. Here is how the exclusion applies in the case of our contractor. 1. If the contractor uses an owned, rented, or borrowed drone to inspect the building, there is no coverage if the drone causes bodily injury or property damage. 2. If the contractor hires a subcontractor with a drone to do the inspection, the named insured has coverage. The drone is not owned or operated by or rented or loaned to any insured. 3. If the contractor indemnifies the owner of the building for bodily injury or property damage caused by the drone, the contractor has coverage for this indemnification obligation. With respect to aircraft, the exclusion has an exception for liability assumed under an insured contract, and the indemnification agreement is an insured contract. Coverage B in the CGL provides personal and advertising injury liability coverage. For example, the contractor publishes the drone video on its website. A building resident appears in the video and claims the contractor violated his right of privacy. There is no aircraft exclusion in Coverage B, so coverage applies whether the named insured or a subcontractor is using the drone. Coverage B's contractual liability exclusion does not have an exception for liability assumed in an insured contract, so there is no coverage for the indemnification obligation. Many insurers seek to further restrict coverage. ISO's exclusion, unmanned aircraft, CG 21-09-06-15, is a commonly used endorsement. This endorsement introduces the term unmanned aircraft to describe a drone. Under coverages and B, the CGL does not apply to any loss involving an unmanned aircraft. This eliminates coverage for bodily injury, property damage, and personal and advertising injury offenses. The exclusion applies whether the named insured or a subcontractor is using the drone, and there is no longer coverage for liability assumed under an insured contract if the bodily injury or property damage is caused by an unmanned aircraft. Some insurers will agree to add coverage for the use of certain drones to a CGL policy. ISO's limited coverage for designated unmanned aircraft, CG 24-50-06-15. Endorsement begins by excluding coverage the way the exclusion, unmanned aircraft, CG 21-09-06 15 does. The coverage A and B exclusions, though, do not apply to the use of unmanned aircraft described on the endorsement for use in operations described on the endorsement. The insurer is also able to include an aggregate limit of liability for this exposure, which is subject to the other aggregate limits already on the policy. What if an insurer is unwilling to add coverage for the use of drones to the CGL? In that case, separate coverage should be written. There are a number of specialty insurers willing to provide liability coverage to businesses using drones. What about damage to the drone, the physical damage exposure? Most property policies and contractors' equipment policies do not provide coverage for damage to aircraft. And while some insurers may be willing to amend policy language to cover damage to a drone, a specialty policy is often needed. Many of the insurers covering drones will provide both liability and physical damage coverage. If and how businesses use drones is a question that should be asked by every insurance agent. The exposure is becoming more common and must be addressed with the client and the insurer so that proper coverage can be arranged. Till next time. Written by Cathy Trischan, CPCU, CRM, CIC, ARM, AU, AAI, CRIS, MLIS, TRIP is IA and B's Commercial Lines Education Consultant. She works with our CIC and CISR programs as well as our live CE webinars. Catch her at one of our upcoming courses at iabforme.com/education. Thank you for listening.
Insurance Agents and Brokers is the premier resource and champion for independent insurance agencies in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. For more information, visit iabforme.com.